About a week ago, Riot revealed the Neeko rework and everything was going to be different with her abilities. And later that same night, I was editing a couple of different videos and converting some video files and stuff like that. And all of a sudden, my SSD stopped working. Turns out my SSD died. The rest of the night, I spent a couple hours trying every solution in the book to revive the SSD, but nothing worked. That was the storage disk where I record all my gameplay footage and where I keep all the clips that I have, and I lost everything. There was a lot I wanted to show you guys. There were some Neeko tips and tricks. There were like 5 or 6 different ones, and they had like compilations of clips. I felt like I needed more different clips, but there were like a lot of different examples of different situations. And yeah, there were just, maybe like 5 different Neeko tips and tricks. And each video that I was editing was composed of many different clips. I also had a couple different Z clips and Z escapes, like 4 or 5, and about 4 or 5 Yone clips as well. I feel like they weren't like, top 5 clips or something like that, but they were definitely up there, at least some of them. Maybe not most of them, but they were definitely like pretty good. Maybe not on the S+++ tier, but maybe on the S or at least the A tier. Most of them were pretty decent, I think. So what did I try to revive the SSD and what ended up being the problem? I tried using different cables and different ports to connect the SSD. I even tried using cables and ports that I knew were 100% working, but the SSD still didn't work. So that told me that it wasn't a cable or port problem, but it was a problem with the physical SSD. And if you're looking for recovery costs of an SSD, that shit costs like an arm and a leg. And even then the recovery might still not be successful. I think I looked at the price and it was something like in between $500 to $1,000 just to recover your information. So that's definitely not an option. So that day and the day after were like a double sad for me, because you guys already know I don't really like the Neeko rework, but on top of that I lost all the video clips that I was kind of hoarding for compilation type videos. Most of them were tips and tricks, but there were still a lot of good plays. Anyways, the most important things that I learned are that SSDs are better than hard drives in every single scenario except 2. Those are the 2 main weaknesses of the SSD. The first, which is common knowledge, is that SSDs are usually about double the price for the same storage space compared to hard drives. And the second point, which is still important but less known, is that SSDs have a way more limited writing lifespan. Hard drives and SSDs are both storage spaces. Basically, hard drives have a limited lifetime in terms of how many hours they're up and running until they're expected to fail, but SSDs have a limited lifespan in terms of how much data they're expected to be able to write to the disk before they fail. Both numbers are pretty high, but I suspect this is the reason why my SSD died, because I was basically perma recording video footage to the disk, and I was also perma converting the files from MKV to MP4, which I'll explain a little bit later on. But basically, in the case where you're continuously writing these large files to your disk, it's much more preferred to have a hard drive than it is to have an SSD, because you'll wear out the SSD a lot faster than you would if you had a hard drive. But this only becomes a problem if you're permanently writing large files to the disk, which is kind of what I was doing. I don't know if maybe this isn't the exact problem that I have, but I'm pretty sure it's a physical problem with the disk, because it doesn't even show up in the BIOS, which is when you start up your computer and you spam either F2 or F11, and it kind of shows you your computer configuration before the operating system starts. I mean, if you guys have any different ideas of what could help or revive it, or if something else went wrong, then feel free to leave it down in the comments below. Maybe it was a different problem and there's an actual solution. And then I guess the last thing is, why was I recording my footage into .mkv and then converting it to .mp4? which essentially means I'm not only writing big files to the disk permanently, but I'm also writing it twice or wearing out my disk twice as fast because I'm always writing the same file twice, basically, just in a different format the second time. So the reason why I was recording the videos in a different file format is because if you're recording an MP4 and your power goes out, or for whatever reason your computer shuts down, then you'll lose the entire video file that you were in the middle of recording. But if instead of MP4 you use something like MKV, then even if your power goes out or if your computer shuts down, you'll still be able to recover the video file that you were in the middle of recording. But to be honest, like, in all my years, I never ran into this problem of my computer randomly shutting down in the middle of recording, so at the end of the day, I was just wearing out my disk much faster by constantly having to do this conversion. Because when you're converting a file, you're essentially just writing it twice to the disk. I think the only thing I have left to try is to update the BIOS. Maybe that magically fixes it and lets the SSD be recognized finally. But I need to wait about a week to try that because I lent a USB that I had to someone else. And the only way to update your BIOS is with like a USB. So I'll try it in like a week or two, but my thing's probably just dead. And honestly, it's very hard to accept it, but you know, it is what it is. I think from now on, I'll just post a random video whenever I have the clip instead of trying to collect many different clips. Another thing that you could do is back up your data if you have a lot of important stuff. But you know, I always hear that shit and I'm like, bro, who the fuck's gonna back up their data, you know, on a secondary disk? But there's also these storage subscription-based services like Google or Mega, and they have different storage plans. For example, you could pay like $10 and get like 1 or 2 terabytes of space in the cloud, and that could be another way to back up data. But yeah, that SSD is probably just dead. I have a few clips, like 2 or 3 that I randomly uploaded to some places, so I'll upload those, and I don't know, whenever I get a clip that could be like a tip or trick, I'll just show you guys what it. Definitely sad though, because there was a lot of stuff. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.